Welcome back to my channel, everybody. And if you're new, well, hey, what's up, what's good? Thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Today I'll be starting my serial killer segment. Initially I started this because I wanted to show that not anyone who just commits a crime, especially one with murder, is mentally not unstable, but has a mental disorder. Mental disorders are not something to play around with. They're not something to just say, oh, this person did something crazy, they are therefore, have a disorder. That's really not how it works. You can't just diagnose someone with your eyes, okay? You can't just diagnose someone because it is something horrible, something bad, something evil, something you would not do. Every single person is not the same. So every person with psychosis, or one of those ones that you always throw out, that people always throw out there as a psychopath, sociopath, just because someone has that disorder does not mean they're going to be a serial killer or they are a serial killer. They're more prone to harmful things, but it doesn't necessarily mean every single psychopath is going to be a serial killer. It doesn't work like that, okay? Today I'll be telling you the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. He is... Okay, let me put the disclaimer and the warning right here. Warning, disclaimer, boom, boom, pam, pam. Listen to me and listen to me good. This is a horrible story. I'm not joking. I'm not trying to sound exaggeratory. I'm not trying to be all that. Literally, this is one of the worst stories that I've ever watched. One of the worst stories I've ever heard. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for people who get grossed out very serious easily. It's a really bad story. As I was like re-watching the documentary so that I can have my pointers, I was like, why did I pick him first? Like, I'm gonna have to say these things. Like, he did horrendous things, okay? So if you cannot handle that, honestly, please, it's okay. Click out, stop, don't go any further. Horrible things coming up. Thank you. Okay, so Jeffrey Dahmer then. He was born in 1960 and he murdered 17 young men, or around 17. He admitted to 17. He spoke about 17. So we would never really know if there were more or less. Okay, not less, but we would never know if there were more than that. So he had murdered 17 men, young men, in his life between 1978 and 1991. He would pick these men up from gay bars, from malls, from bus stops, from... There's some other word, I'm going to mention it later. Something house, I'll write it on top. He'd pick them up from there, and then he'd lure them into his house, his apartment or his house, by saying that he's going to give them money in exchange for something. So in exchange for photographs, in exchange for sexual favors, in exchange for whatever the case may be. But he would always offer them money. I think it was $50 or something. He'd always offer them money, and then they'd come with him to his place, or he'd coerce them or something like that to get them back to his place. He was very, very well spoken and very charming, I suppose, and handsome. I'm doing this because, to each their own. Here is his photograph, a few of them. So to each their own. Yeah, and he wouldn't really care about the kind of man that he'd pick up. He just would pick up someone that he says that he thought was attractive. He didn't care about race or whatever, because it actually turned out that 10 out of his 17 victims were black people. So people were like, did you prefer black people? And he was like, no, he didn't really care about the race. He just picked up any man that he felt was attractive. It was all about the attractiveness and how attractive the person looked to him. So yeah. So he was born in 1960, and he was a very ordinary, I suppose, child. He was happy, happy-go-lucky, excited, all those bubbly kind of characteristics. And then when he was 4 years old, he had to have a surgery to remove a double hernia. And after he had the surgery, it just says everywhere you could watch, read or watch about him, that after that surgery it was the first tick in the downhill spiral. After that, he just was very withdrawn, very quiet, very to himself. Well, his mother, weirdly enough, because yesterday I watched a whole lot more of things about him, and his mother, she doesn't really remember things like that. She doesn't think anything happened. She always thought that he was okay and fine and happy and whatever. But his father's nah, bro. After that, he wasn't the same kind of kid and stuff like that. And even as a child, he would go around and pick up dead animals. Like, he would play with dead animal bones, he'd pick up roadkill, he would play with them and stuff like that. So like, I feel like personally, I'm sorry, I know this is not my story, it's not my 2 cents to add, but I'm telling the story. So in my 2 cents, personally, I feel like as soon as your kid plays with dead animals, take the child somewhere. Someone needs to check them. Take them to a neuropsychologist, take them to an ordinary psychologist, I don't care, take them somewhere. Okay, if you are no, there's no reason for kids to be playing with dead things. They should be running. I don't care, you take that child to go get checked, because but anyway, so he used to play with stuff like that. But his dad was not a chemist, whatever you'd call that. Yes. So I don't know, I guess he thought it was like kind of okay, maybe he was like following his dad's footsteps, because he'd ask a lot of questions about bones and stuff and whatever, and his dad was like, okay, maybe you want to be like me, sir. But anyway, so after that, like after him being all withdrawn and everything, it continued, it never really stopped. So when he was a young teenager, he was still extremely withdrawn into himself and didn't have a lot of friends, and he was like very by himself, I suppose. And then when he was 14, he started drinking, and it's notable because you're gonna see how it escalates as he goes on. So when he was 14, he started drinking, and it wasn't really like good drinking, it wasn't social drinking, it was like drinking by himself to get drunk, just for the just. And he wouldn't even stop when he was drunk, he'd just go. So as he got older, it didn't stop, and then his parents got a divorce, still in his teen years, so somewhere after 14. His parents got a divorce, and then when they got a divorce, that was like the second thing that would, like, let's say add to everything that happened. And then he himself would say that around his teen years, when he was 14 and around there, would be where like the necrophilia, I will put a thingy that explains what that means over here, and because I don't want to say that, the necrophilia and murderous tendencies began, because as well, when he was 14, he used to sit, there was a very specific it's not really like a highway, but it's a road, and it's just one single road. Obviously it goes both ways, but it's just one road, not anything else. It's just like outstretched and open after that. So there was this one road that he would stay in the exact same place. Even his father knows that exact same place. So he'd stay in that exact same place, and he would stand there with a baseball bat, and he would like picture and imagine and fantasize about hitting a jogger with the baseball bat, and then just laying with him. Like nothing more, not like just hit the jogger to stop him and to lay with him. So that also, obviously, next point of how, I don't even want to say what started it, I just want to say like the continuous build-up of the stuff, because you'll realize later the thing with Jeffrey Dahmer was that he liked control, he liked being the only one with the control, and he liked the idea of it's all about control. I don't know how else to say it besides control. Like, he wants to be the one to do everything, to move everything, to change the pace, to control everything. So yeah, so his parents got a divorce, and then after they divorced, the drinking continued, everything continued, and then he graduated high school when he was 18 years old. And then after he graduated, a few months after that, and like a few months before his 19th birthday, he was in the house alone because his parents had just divorced. I don't really recall where his father was, but the mother had moved out. She also had another baby after Jeffrey, but I mean, he's not really in the story. So she moved out with the little brother and she left. So the dad was, I really don't know where, and then Jeff was left alone in the house, this house. Bing. So he was driving back home, I think from a bar, because he had been drinking. So he was driving back home, and he says that he has always had like a fantasy about picking up a hitchhiker. Like, it's just something that would come to him. Like, he'd just think about it. Like, one day he'd be driving home. I can't believe how spot on it is. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, he was like, you know, you'd fantasize about one day driving back home, and he'd see this handsome hitchhiker, and he'd give him a ride, and then he'd take him back to his house and do whatever he wants to do with him. You see, control. So one day he is driving back home, and when he's driving back home, he sees this hitchhiker, and he's like, oh, and he's handsome. Oh my gosh, here is my fantasy come true. So he stops and he speaks to the he speaks to the hitchhiker, and he's like, would you like to come home with me? We could have a couple of drinks or whatever, then I'll take you home. And the hitchhiker's like, okay, yeah, sure, cool. Shouldn't have. So they get back to the house, and then they're drinking whatever it's cool, it's nice, they're talking, and then eventually the hitchhiker wants to, oh, I'm so sorry, also disclaimer, I'm not going to mention any names of the victims. I'm not going to show pictures of the victims. If you want all of that, you can freely Google it, but just for the sake of like respect for the families, I'm not going to do that. It's just very unfortunate that they're a part of the story. They did not choose to be a part of the story, so I'm not going to add them. Okay, cool. So eventually the hitchhiker wants to leave and he wants to go home, and he's like, okay, I think I'm gonna leave now. And then Jeffrey's Dahmer's like, oh, no, you're not going anyway. Then he picks up a dumbbell and he whacks the hitchhiker over the head, and he whacks him again. And then once he's on the floor, he's like, oh, maybe I went too far. And he goes, oh well. And then he takes the dumbbell again, and he proceeds to choke the hitchhiker. He dies. And then when he dies, Jeffrey himself says that he was like in a state of like sort of like panic and shock that, oh my gosh, I actually killed this person. And then, warning again, please, very disgusting what I have to say. And then after that, like while he's standing over the hitchhiker's body, he proceeds to then masturbate, and then obviously, I mean, you know what comes after that. And then, no, he doesn't like do the necrophilia things yet, but he, what do you call it? Ejaculates, there we go. And then once he's done doing that, he takes the body to the basement and he leaves it there, and then he goes to go sleep. Next day he wakes up, he goes to go deal with the body, obviously, and then he doesn't know how to do any of this yet because this is his first murder, so he doesn't know how to really dispose of the body, so he just chops it up, and he called it himself trial and error. It was just trial and error with this one, so he just chopped up the body, dismembered. He dismembered the body, put it in a plastic, and then disposed of it outside the house. Yeah, not even far, outside the house, like dug a hole or whatever, and just chucked them in there and closed it, and that was that hitchhiker. A few months of that, he enters university, obviously, and then he drops out. And when he drops out at university, he still continues with his drinking and is still like incredulous. And then his father is like, you know what, I cannot do this. You cannot do this. This cannot be your life. Go to the army. He goes to the army in like late 1978, but then by 1981 he gets discharged from the army because of his drinking. So then when he returns back home, his father's like, man, I can't believe you. And then, as if it can't get any worse, I mean, his father doesn't know about the body in his backyard, but if it doesn't get any worse, he then goes and he gets arrested 3 separate times. Let me tell you why. None of them good. First time is for disorderly conduct. Oh, the first time is for disorderly conduct, and then his father goes to send him. What? And then his father sends him to go live with his gran. I don't know why. If you can't deal with him, how your mama gonna deal with him? But child, anyway. So after the disorderly conduct, he goes to go live with his gran. Gets arrested a second time for indecent exposure, and then he gets arrested a third time for masturbating in front of 2 young children. And I suppose after those, he tries to like get his act together and get his life together. So then while he's living with his gran is his father too, is like a church goer and Christian and all that. So he starts going to church with his gran, and he goes to church and he feels like he's found God, and he feels like he is on a better track. You know, he's doing better, he's okay, he's finding himself. And then this goes on for like 2 years, you know, of him trying to clean himself of his desires and trying to stick to being a church guy and whatever. And then after 2 years, what happens is that he starts drinking again. And then once he starts drinking again, that's when, I mean, it starts to go south again. And, he had mentioned that, Jeffrey Dahmer had mentioned that when he grew up in a very small town, a very conservative town. And like I said, his father is a churchman. And after another thing that I watched yesterday, I've now discovered that his father is very homophobic, like 175% homophobic. He's like so enraged inside that his son is gay. So obviously, with me being able to tell that from that one interview, well, to be fair, the interviewer did ask him, okay, so how do you feel about it? And he was like, no, he's a church man. Man upstairs doesn't condone that. He doesn't condone that. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm paraphrasing. So based off of that, I could 100% tell that probably in his childhood, it's not going to be any different. Just that interview was obviously after he'd been convicted. So I doubt it would be any different. So if it was a small town and they all went to church and stuff, I'm pretty sure everyone thought exactly like him. So it was very taboo, it was very unacceptable, 100% something you cannot do. Disclaimer, by no means saying that this is a good reason for him to go now and murder young boys because he couldn't live as a gay man freely. In no way saying that. It's a part of the story, just telling you. Okay. So he says that it was taboo and everything, and there was never a time where he could have had a boyfriend or had his desires fulfilled or anything like that, because where would he go? Where, how would he get that? So he never really came out, and he hardly even came out to himself. And then, but he just knew that he was obviously sexually, attracted. He was sexually attracted to males. So he used to go to gay bars, obviously. And then the word I forgot was bathhouses. And then he used to go to bathhouses. I'm not 100% certain what they are. I'm going to put an explanation over here if I can. Anything goes over there. You can do whatever you want. It's where you release all your sexual urges together, consensual. So that's the only rule that was in a bar house, that it had to be consensual. If someone said no, you cut it out. You stop. It's done. Get out. So I'm assuming that's what it is. It's like a place with rooms and stuff like that, and you can do as you please. So he used to go there. But then, because remember, he's a person who's all about control. He wants to be in control. He wants to be dominant. He needs to be the one calling the shots, and the person has to be like a puppet. Just move as I'm moving you. So he used to drug the people. He used to drug them. And then obviously that would give him all his control and all his power and fulfill his sexual pleasures even better, because now he is the one with the power. He is the one with the control. This person is nothing, because he gets to move him however he wants because he's drugged. And then he says that he had trained himself to now stop seeing these men as humans, and he started seeing them as objects. So that's clearly how he would treat them. And then one night when he goes back to a bar house, he drugs the person too much. And then when he drugs the person too much, the ambulance has to be called. Once the ambulance gets called, obviously now the people know what you're doing. And I mean, if you're drugging me to do all these things to me, that's really not that consensual anymore. It's not. Even if I said yes in the beginning, now you're drugging me, so I can't really tell you to stop when I want you to stop. So it's not consensual. So then obviously they cut him off. They told him, you're banned from here. We never want to see you ever again. Don't you dare step your foot in this place. Obviously he couldn't go back there, so he had to find a new way to now release all his desires and everything like that. So he went to a clothing shop, I would suppose. He went to a shop, and then he hid until the shop was closing and stuff, and then he took a mannequin and he put it inside a bag, and then he left. So he stole a mannequin, and then after he stole a mannequin, he would do whatever he wanted to do to that mannequin. But then eventually he found out that it's not the same, it doesn't give him the same power and control, so he doesn't really like it. It would work, but not to his liking. It wouldn't work the way he wanted it to. And after that he was just like, meh, nah. So once he realized that the mannequin doesn't satisfy him the way that like a real human being does, he decided, well, not that he decided, he was like, okay, well, now I have to go back to finding actual human beings. Then he went and he found the second victim, and this time they consensually went to a hotel. Here it is. Bling! He went to the hotel together. They went there and then they were drinking, having a good time, whatever. And then Jeffrey just says that he drugged the drink, and then he gave it to the victim, and then obviously he drank it, but then Jeffrey says that he thinks that he drank it as well because he blacked out and he doesn't remember what happened. He just remembers waking up the next day and seeing this guy, but then when he saw him, his head was like hanging over the bed, and he had bruises on his ribs and bruises all over and stuff like that, and Jeffrey himself had like a few scuff marks on him, and then he realized that the guy was dead. So he was like, every time in an interview when he speaks about the second one, he says, I suppose I had to have fought him and then killed him and like punched him to death, but he doesn't remember it, he doesn't know what happened, he just assumes that is what happened. And then after that victim, he himself says that that's when it really just flew off the rails. Like the wheels came off, the bumper, the doors, the windows, everything fell apart. Gone. Everything was over for him after that one. That was when he really just he tried to stop, but after that it was just it is what it is. And then how he gets rid of the body is he goes and then he buys a suitcase, and after he buys a suitcase he comes back into the hotel, and then somehow he manages to put the body in the suitcase, and then he checks out, and then he rolls it away, and then even like a valet kind of person even helps him put the suitcase in the car and stuff like that. And then once he gets home, he puts it in the fridge, not obviously the main fridge. I suppose they had maybe one of those big square fridges. So he puts it in the fridge and he leaves it there for like a week. When his grand goes to church, he's like, okay, cool, bet, it's time to get rid of this. And then he does. And then after this, he also says that this is when he thought to himself that, you know what, maybe this is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. I tried to find the man upstairs and it didn't work out for me. Here I am back again with another dead body. I don't even remember doing this, like murdering this one, but I did, so clearly this is what I'm meant to do. What kind of logic? But that's his logic. He runs with it, he rolls with it, he puts his own wheels on the car, he puts his own windows, puts his own doors, and he goes with it. After that, he murders like 2 more victims, and by like 1988 he has 4 victims now. After that, a few whatever's after 1988, there is a man. So his story, the man, not Jeffrey Dahmer, is that one night he got out of a bar, and then when he got out of there, his car was parked opposite the bar. So he goes to his car. When he tries to start his car, it doesn't start, and then he's like and then Jeffrey Dahmer approaches him and he's like, oh, is there a problem with your car? We can go to my place. I don't live that far from here, and I can help you get it fixed. And then the man's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, cool. And then they go to Jeffrey Dahmer's place, and when they get there, Jeffrey's like, would you like something to drink? And the guy's like, man, I said I just want to be here to fix my car. I'm not interested in getting a drink. Jeffrey's like, okay, fine. I am gonna make myself a cup of coffee. And then I suppose he also makes him a cup of coffee. And then they're drinking the coffee, but then Jeffrey had spiked the coffee. So then the man feels wobbly, and then he says the last thing he remembers is seeing Jeffrey's shoes on the floor. When he wakes up, he's in the hospital, and he's like, oh my god, Jalal, what happened? And then when he looks down at himself, he sees that his underwear is inside out, and as it's inside out, it and a few of like his places down there have blonde hair, as you saw in the pictures. And here you go again, Jeffrey has blonde hair. So he sees blonde hair there, and then 1 + 1, you know. And now he's like scared and petrified and everything. So he goes to the police station. He's a black male. He goes to the police station and he's like, hi, I need to report this man. He molested me. I you know, remember this, and the third. And then a week later or something, they get Jeffrey into the police station and they question him. They're like, okay, what were you doing with this man? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And Jeffrey's like, remember, he's well spoken and he's a smooth talker and he can lie himself out of anything. There is another case. This is the first case that really ticked me off and really hurt me. The second case that really irritated me and really ticked me off because they could have known from then that he was bad. The second one is so much worse than this one, but anyway, this one ticked me off too. But anyway, so he comes in and he's like, what? No, that's my boyfriend. And it was consensual and this is just what we do. He just, you know, got ahead of himself and he drank too much. We both drank too much. We must have gotten into an argument and he doesn't remember like us. Obviously I'm very much paraphrasing, you know, he doesn't remember us doing all of that, blah 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 blah, but you know, it was consensual, no, this, that, and the third. And I know you don't see Jeffrey, he a white man. Who you think they believed in? What is it, 1989 now? Who you think they believed? So they believe Jeffrey and they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then they don't even listen to that other man anymore. They don't even look at him. They don't even call him back. They don't anything. Like, the case is closed, it's done. You didn't get molested, forget you. Anyway, also what they told him was that the police told this black victim that it's your word against his. Ciao. After this incident, or maybe after a few of them, his gran told his father that she kept seeing people leave Jeff's house, well, section. I think he probably lived in the basement. So she kept seeing people stumbling out of there and stuff like that. And then the father was like, you know what, I don't want it to be dangerous for you. And she was like, I don't want it to be dangerous for me either. And they decided that Jeff should move out. So he moves out. And then when he moves out, he approaches this young man in the park and he's like, oh, hey, would you like to come over to my place so I can take some photos and then I'll give you some money? The guy says, okay, yeah, sure, cool. And then he goes and he takes him to the apartment, but then they get into like a little tussle once the man realizes that he's trying to like touch him sexually and he's not really here for that. And then the man escapes, and then when he escapes he calls the cops and everything, and then Jeffrey gets arrested again. And then as he's waiting for his hearing and stuff like that, he murders someone else. Now it's 5 people. And then after that he gets convicted and he goes to jail for not that long. And then before he gets released, because now his father knows what he was in jail for like fondling someone, he sends a letter to the judge, and you know, he pleads for the judge to take Jeffrey to a mental institution or somewhere that would get him help, because he's like, my son obviously needs some help, please can you help him, someone needs to help him, you know, I don't know if this is gonna be the last time this is gonna happen, you know, before something horrible really happens, please help my son. He ain't get that help. In 1990, Jeff moves into these apartments, Oxford apartments. He moves into there, and where they were situated was like a drug city, basically a drug town. Every corner there were drug dealers, every corner there were people buying the drugs, you know, taking the drugs, whatever. It was just drug city, and it was more like a black population in that town, township, whatever you want to call it. It was more black people, so he was like the only black person there. And for him, he said it was like the perfect place. Obviously, I mean, if he's going to murder people and take people from a place like that, who's really going to care? You know, who's really going to notice besides the family members? Nobody. So it's like hiding in plain sight. He gets a job at the chocolate factory, and obviously to get the money and to pay for the rent. Next warning, please. Honestly, ill coming up. So once he lived alone, he decided that, you know what, just murdering someone, because he was fascinated and aroused by the human anatomy. So he realized that, you know what, just murdering someone and then chopping them up and then doing what I gotta do, you know, the necrophilia and the masturbating to a dead body, to an opened dead body, it's not kicking me no more. So he decided, maybe if I, warning please, honestly, warning, maybe if I took a piece of his bicep and took a piece of his heart and cooked it and ate it, I would feel closer to him. I would feel more sexually pleasured if I did that. So while looking at photos of the man, because he also used to take photos, but then the photos also weren't that, didn't do as much for him. So while looking at the photo, he ate the man's bicep. I repeat, while looking at the man's photo, he
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first it was just curiosity, and then...
By the time November of 1990 came around, he had 9 victims. And then obviously November time is what? Thanksgiving in America. So at the end of November, he goes back to his family. He has Thanksgiving with them, and then watch this little clip.
Here, you look like you're working out.
No, I've been surviving on McDonald's food for, since I moved down there.
McDonald's. A man's bicep and his heart and who knows what other body parts is McDonald's. 1991 doesn't get any better. He continues, and by May of 1991 he has 12 victims. Please, I just said November there were 9 of 1990. May of 1991 there were 12. Like May 1991 he had started to think, you know what's better than cannibalism? What could possibly be better than cannibalism? What could make me feel even closer to these people? What could it possibly be? Oh, I don't know. What could give me more power? Oh, I don't know. Maybe making humans zombies. Making human zombies. That's what he wanted. He would drill a hole in the person's skull and put acid in it, because he thought if he could make human zombies, he would have a fully complacent play doll to do whatever he wanted to do with. His full capacity of his power and his control would be able to be fulfilled with a human zombie. A human zombie. So in these procedures, like I told you, he drilled a hole, and then he kept changing the acid that he'd put inside, because this one wouldn't work, that one wouldn't work, people kept dying instantly. So then another person, this is the second story that really irks me, because they really could have caught him here, honestly, but anyway, was a 14-year-old boy. 14. This is not even the first 14-year-old boy. I think he's the second. 14-year-old young boy. He was trying to do the same thing to him. And I'm not really certain, because I really tried. It doesn't really tell me if it's before or after, but I'm going to assume it was in the middle of, like, it was still trying to happen, because the boy escaped. And then when he escaped, he got onto the street and he was like butt naked. There's a lady who was telling the story. So he was butt naked and she saw him. She was in the car with her cousins and she was going to her aunt's house. No, she was going to her cousin's house. And she was like, no man, hold on a minute. There's a naked boy out there. What's going on here? So she gets out of the car. She goes to the boy. She tries to save the boy. The boy is incoherent. He's, very dizzy, very wobbly and stuff like that. And she's like, what is going on here? So she calls the cops. When she calls the cops are like, okay, where are you? The normal. She tells them, I'm here. And then while she's talking to the cops and she's about to like get done talking to them, Jeffrey Dahmer approaches and he's like, oh no, give me the boy. We're just sitting up there, like, I know him, he's I don't even know what he called him, but he's like, let go of the boy, I've got him, don't worry, we're cool, he knows me, we're together. And she says the boy looks so terrified, and she's like, no, I'm not letting you go with the boy. So they're like fighting over the boy and stuff like that, and then the fire department comes, and when the fire department comes, they put a blanket over the boy because he's naked. So they put a blanket over the boy, and then the cops come, and then she like flags them down. When she flags the cops down, they're like, oh, what's going on here? And then she explains everything, and as she's trying to actually even get into the explanation, Jeffrey starts speaking. And when he starts speaking, he's like hella rude to her, even calls her like a bee, right? And he's like, nah, she's just a crazy black bee. And she like, you were talking so fine like 2 minutes ago, now all of a sudden, you know, I'm like the crazy one and stuff like that, you know. He's like, she's crazy, whatever, no 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 no, I know this kid, no no no, doesn't call him a kid, sorry, I know this man, no 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 no. She's like, you know what, I'm gonna go fetch my aunt, because the aunt's obviously older. I think she said she was 16, 14, 16, no, I think 16 when this happened. So she's gonna go fetch her aunt. So she runs to go get her aunt, and then when she comes back to the place, everyone's gone. Fire department gone, cops gone, boy gone, Jeffrey Dahmer gone. So she goes back to her aunt. She's like, no 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 no, you have to call the cops back. I don't know what happened to this boy, you know, I don't know what happened to this boy. We need to know what happened to this boy. The aunt gets on the phone, she calls the cops. The same guy who was driving the cruiser answers. He's like, oh no, that was me. And she's like, okay, what happened to the boy? He's like, it's not a boy, it's a man. And she goes, okay, whatever, what happened? And he's like, oh no no no, it's just a boyfriend and a boyfriend. And she's like, are you sure? And he's like, yes, the boyfriend and the boyfriend. And then we find out later that the cops had helped Jeffrey Dahmer put this boy back into his apartment. So they helped carry him, helped put him in the apartment, and shut the door and left. A 14-year-old boy. 14-year. All you have to do is enter that apartment and just check it out. Look at that boy's face. You tell that he's a boy. Look at his face. Think. Freaking think. Just go inside that apartment. Open the freaking fridge. All you have to do is open the fridge, and you would have seen monstrosities, because he used to keep skulls and he used to keep heads in there, and obviously he's McDonald's patties. All you had to do was go inside. So he used to call his urge to get these bodies and kill them and everything a compulsion. So his compulsion never stopped. He kept wanting to try and find the perfect acid to put inside the brain to get the perfect zombie, because it never worked. Duh. So he kept getting more bodies. So by July there's 4 more, because every week there's a new body, new week, new body every week. So adds up 4 more victims to that. He decides, you know what, I need to find a way to dispose of these bodies quicker, because obviously they're piling up. Okay, what I want to do is not happening, and I can't have all these bodies lingering around. So he gets a very big barrel, blue barrel, and then he fills it up with acid, and then he thinks, okay, I'm just going to dissolve the bodies in there. I don't even know if dissolve is the right word, but he's going to put them in there, you know, so they can, yeah. So then obviously this isn't really that successful. I mean, I guess without a trace, but not really. You live in an apartment building, many more people who live there. So he knew the neighbors who lived he lived in 213. He knew the neighbors who lived in 214. It was a black man. Oh, obviously it's black. I said the whole neighborhood's black. It was him and his wife. So his wife waited for him one day, and she was like, sir, to Jeffrey, sir, it stinks. What is going on? You need to like fix. You need to fix whatever's going on here. And he's like, I'm so sorry. My fridge broke, so all my meat in a day. All my meat went bad. I'm so sorry. Blah 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 blah. Mr. Smooth Talker, the husband believed it because the husband was friends with him. So the husband was like, ugh, then the meats, you know, please leave the boy. It's a dead bodies stinking up the whole place. After that, there is a man who he invites over to his place, and he's like, please come, you know, the same story. I'll give you money, you pose for pictures. The man goes inside, he goes to go pose for pictures and stuff like that. And then when that is happening, the problem now is that Jeffrey doesn't have any more sleeping pills with him, so he doesn't have anything to knock him out with. So he's like, ugh, it's fine, whatever, you know, just get him drunk enough. So once he thinks he's like drunk enough, he takes a knife and he puts it to like his neck, and then he lies on he's like, can I lie on your chest? And then he lies on his chest, and he's like, you know, when I eat your heart, you'll be a part of me and I'll be a part of you. And after that, the man is like, oh hell nah, I'm drunk but not that drunk. So he says, can I please go to the bathroom? Jeffrey's like, yeah, cool. And then when he gets up, he like hits Jeffrey, and he hits him, and then he runs. And when he runs, he gets outside. When he gets outside, there's like a police car, and the police car's like, where in the hell's you going, boy? And then he tells them everything. And then when they get there, finally they get inside, and they're like, what's going on here? And then the man's recollection is that Jeffrey tries to hit the door back onto the cops. He tries to like stop them from getting inside, and then obviously they get inside, they start moving around and seeing things, and then they see the knife, and once they see the knife they're like, oh. And when they get in there, they start seeing like his photos and stuff like that. And then one opens the fridge. When they open the fridge, it's over, it's game time, because the man actually indicated that there's something in the fridge, and it's like over. They arrest him. Jeffrey's point of view, he says he just opened the door and the cops asked him about handcuffs, because the man was handcuffed. He's like, where's a handcuff? And then Jeffrey points to the bedroom, and when they get into the bedroom they see the pictures and they see the knife, and then that's when they arrest him, according to Jeffrey. That's his point. So whatever point is, that was the night he got arrested. In November of 1994, a fellow inmate who murders Jeffrey Dahmer, he was cleaning a toilet in the prison. He got 990 life sentences. So while he was cleaning the toilet, a fellow inmate came from behind him and then beat him. I think it was a broom, a sharpened broom or something like that, and he did it. Dahmer saw a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist diagnosed him with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal disorder, psychotic disorder. Well, not exactly psychotic, but some aspects of psychotic disorder. But in a court of law, for them to trial you as someone who's not mentally okay, you have to have not known that what you were doing was wrong. So here is pictures of what each one really means, or just a rough thing of what they mean. So he never got tried for that. He just got tried as a sane person because he knew what he was doing was wrong. And I watched, like I said last night, a lot of things, and you could tell that he knew what he was doing was wrong. And he says so himself, and he's like, sometimes he'd like look at the skulls or whatever, look at the whatevers, and he'd be like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But then he just moves on because the compulsion is just so strong that he can't not do it. I don't know what I get from him, you know. I really wanted to have like a big fat pulling together all the lines, you know, and giving you this big psychological answer at the end of this, but I really don't have one. There just isn't an answer for everything, and he just wow. And also the thing of like wanting control. I watched one, and like the way he keeps wanting the control and wanting to be, you know, because he keeps saying that you can't blame parents, you can't blame upbringings, you can't blame anything, you can only blame me. And that sense of wanting everybody to know that it was him is a very psychotic serial killer kind of thing to do. And I'm going to say psychotic serial killer, not psychotic disorder, psychotic person, because like I said, everyone is different. But the psychotic serial killers, that is something that's like, that they really, really want people to know. They want you to know it was me. I did this. It was me. One man. I did it. My crimes. My victims. My. You know, the way he keeps reiterating it, no matter what interview I watch, no matter how they ask him the question, he wants you to know it wasn't my father, wasn't my mother, wasn't my upbringing, wasn't whatever medications my mom was taking, because the father thinks maybe that helped hurt. The father thinks maybe it was him. You know, and he's like, no, listen here, it's me. I did it. Me. Just me. So that in itself, you know, is just something that is kind of, it goes hand in hand with the psychotic serial killer thing. But anyway, that's it for this story. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so sorry this was so long. I'm genuinely so sorry. I'll try my hardest not to make the others this long. I just really couldn't help it. Like, this is just how long the story is. So honestly sorry if you got this far, and if you really enjoyed it, please don't forget to give it a huge thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.